have food that everybody would like to follow our secrets, maybe the seasoning and maybe the simplicity of it, but everything we cook, it sticks to your rib, Dave. Like say, when you eat one of our, say a piece of boudin, and we look at a man, and we usually give him so many inches for the size, man. You probably about a 8 to 9 inch man, say. And you'd eat 8 to 9 inches, and it would stick to your ribs where you wouldn't get hungry for 8 to 10 hours.
A.J. Judice, the man under the beret, and the secrets of that good Cajun cooking.
Could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me.
The weed hopper is a very small plane. The latest craze takes to the air. Lots of oil being canned in Nederland. These stories and much more next on Channel 4's Weekend Magazine.
Good afternoon, I'm Russ Murphy.
I'm Duncan Woodford. Thanks for joining us again for Weekend Magazine.
Today we'll meet the crazy Frenchman. We'll see the commander of Stalag 13 visit the Golden Triangle, and we'll watch as a company in Nederland blends that motor oil we all use in our cars. But first, Duncan has a story about some people who just can't seem to keep their feet on the ground.
That's right, Russ, a dedicated group of adventurers who keep reaching for the stars. They seem to take their life into their hands each trip, but return to Earth safely. We found them on Pleasure Island one Sunday not too long ago.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me.
The weed hopper is a very small plane, sort of a cross between a go-kart and a glider. Ronald Gunter says it's fun to fly.
I've been scuba diving, parachuting, had motorcycles, boats, and this all of them rolled into one right here. It's a lot of fun.
The weed hopper can be put together in about 45 minutes. The tail goes on first. Then comes the wings. The engine and propeller sit at the front. They stay attached. The weed hopper has two manual controls. On the pilot's right, the control for up-down and right-left. On the pilot's left, the throttle. It's a simple plane, but Gunter says it's safe.
I don't think it's that dangerous. I think it's a lot more safer than a motorcycle or anything, because it goes about 55 and lands about 23 miles an hour. It's kind of hard to get hurt. You can almost run 20 miles an hour. If you hit a tree or something like that, we're protected in that cage. I mean, it's real safe. If the engine quits, this thing glides real easy.
The pilot doesn't have to wear anything special, but a helmet and gloves help. He just straps into the seat, and he's ready to fly.
I guess just a sense of freedom, being like a bird. Just like in a go-kart, if you're on the ground or something like that, you say, oh, hey, there's a tree right there, I want to go over it. You just pull it up, you go over it, go back down. It's just a blast. It's hard to describe unless you get up in one.
Ever been scared up there?
Oh, yeah, I've been scared up there. I've been up there when a cold front blow in and the wind turned around 180 degrees and dropped me about 200 feet. But it handled real good. I come on down, kiss the ground.
It seems like it would be a whole lot of fun if you could overcome your fear.
If frogs had wings, they wouldn't bump around so much either. Next on Weekend Magazine, the man with the secret of boudin.
If you love music, and lots of it, then you'll love our 50-song, 5-album Super Hits Collection. You can have dance songs.
Some unique personalities.
The blend of different types of people who settled Southeast Texas is really quite interesting.
Russ, all are proud of their heritages, but there probably isn't a group of people more proud than the Cajun.
Cajun roots run deep throughout the Triangle, and there's one man amongst us who represents those people like no one else, I guarantee.
He is A.J. Judice, and he's called the Crazy Frenchman, and you're about to find out why. Weekend Magazine producer Dave Wilson has our story.
At first glance, this could be any grocery store in any town, anywhere in the country. There is nothing further from the truth. This is Judice's French Market in Port Arthur. There are all kinds of reasons this isn't your everyday corner grocery, and it all starts with the sign out front. Those glasses, that mustache, and the beret. Those have become the symbols of this tiny Louisiana-born Texan. AJ's folks came to Port Arthur from Louisiana and started the grocery store. At first, AJ wasn't too interested in the grocery business, but that all changed.
Well, of course, my mother and my daddy came from New Iberia in Lowerville, Louisiana, way back in 1918. My daddy arrived, and then they came and they started a little business. Well, he was in oil business first, and he ran out of oil, so he got in the grocery business. And with $500 in 1932, they finally got their own little store. My mother and my dad, little Cajun Queen and the Cajun King. And then they started this, and after 5 years of working hard, they said, man, I got enough to retire. So they went back to Louisiana, bought a farm, bought some mules, and built a house, and had the tractor that was first coming out there. They bought a little tractor. And after about 6 months of milking them cows, he said, you know, this farm life ain't what it's cut out to be. I think I'm going back to Texas. So he started going about every other week, and he finally located his little store. And I didn't want to leave Louisiana. See, my heart belongs to Texas, but my rear end belongs to Louisiana. There's something about both states. They got something I like. But finally, after staying with my grandmother for 2 years, I came back to Texas and went to school. And then from 9 years old, I started liking the grocery business, and I didn't have to be paid to get in it, but I just liked it. I bagged many of bags of potatoes that we got from Sabine Pass, and we sold them 10 pounds for a nickel. See, that was really some hot deal. And we had watermelons. Well, I forgot the price of them, but watermelon, cantaloupe, and of course shrimp. My daddy would catch shrimp. 69, 49 cents a pound. All these things we made our living on, but we went right to where they were produced. And of course, my mother brought this famous recipe, boudin, to Texas. She was the first one that produced produced boudin commercially. And she sold so many pounds a day. She made it every day. And people, once they tried our boudin, it's kind of like a dope. they had to have it. Sometimes they'd move away for thousands of miles. They'd come back to get our boudin. So she started boudin, and I started live crawfish, bringing them to Texas. And in fact, we had, you know, we started them in some of the ponds here, and they started multiplying. And all these Cajun deals, well, we tried to instigate starting in Texas. So it would kind of remind us of being in Louisiana. That's the next best thing.
Is that what started all the Cajuns coming across? Was
Well, really the oil business and jobs, that was the thing. But now Louisiana's got as much, or almost as much oil and as much jobs as Texas. So it's kind of a neutralized deal, you see. A lot of people, they can't forget Louisiana because it was 72% Cajuns in Port Arthur. And for some reason, these Cajun boys and girls, a lot of them came and they worked hard and everything, and they made many of them are retiring now. And now they go back to Louisiana and, of course, visit. But once you get into this part of Texas, it's like heaven in the skies. It feels like Louisiana, but you're in that Texas with all them jobs and everything. So this is why we're in Port Arthur, Texas.
this store was really built in a central area of Port Arthur, wasn't it?
Right. This was a German settlement, by the way. When my mother and daddy chose this lot, there was about, maybe 30 to 50 families, all German. We were the first Kunas that invaded this German settlement without firing a shot. We came in, we set up a little grocery store, and we handled what they wanted, but we converted them over to boudin. Even the Germans started bragging about boudin.
I finally got his mama.
Look at Pinky. That's our fishing lady. She catch me sometimes some garfield, and how about
A lot of people who shop in Judice's French Market have done so for a long time. Some have lived in the neighborhood since the days of the interurban.
The Nervin track used to run right through that. That was a Nervin track that went to Beaumont, Texas. And we take a little ride on that years ago at 10 cents a ride. That was round trip, baby, so it was really a deal there.
How long did it take you?
Well, probably, around 33 1/3 minutes. And then coming back, it was a little bit more because you was against the wind. See, that south wind was going. All right. But anyway, now look, hot food, Dan. Go push. Come on, Cajuns, push. This right here, I tell you what, we've got to keep it away from the public. It's often like folks, sometimes they fight over it. Some people got to the bottom of the...
Boudin is just one of AJ's weaknesses. Actually, any Cajun food would fit that category. But AJ is best known for boudin. AJ's mother makes about a ton of it a week for all kinds of stores and companies. That's enough to string from here to Crowley. Cajun food and the Cajun way of life, those are very special to A.J. Judice.
I love this Cajun culture particularly because I think we have done something in Texas and Louisiana to promote good living, the best of food. I think we have food that everybody would like to follow our secrets, maybe the seasoning and maybe the simplicity of it, but everything we cook, it sticks to your rib, Dave. Like, say, when you eat one of our, say, a piece of boudin, and we look at a man, we usually give him so many inches for the size, man. You're probably about a 8 to 9 inch man, say. And you'd eat 8 to 9 inches, and it would stick to your ribs where you wouldn't get hungry for 8 to 10 hours. But you eat I don't want to say, but maybe a spaghetti or meatball, or maybe a hot tamale. That don't stick to your ribs as much as that boudin. So remember, if you want to work longer on a full stomach, eat Cajun food regular. And gumbo can be, I'll feed, say, 8 or 10 people. My wife is cooking that gumbo, and we've got chicken gumbo or shrimp, and all of a sudden, we got a table set, we see 2 pirogues coming down the bayou. And what he said, well, don't get it, Cajun don't have to be scared, because the only thing they can do, they add a little more water and cook a little more rice, and they can serve 20 people off the same stuff, and they'll never know the difference. They'll all leave happy. So you can always stretch that Cajun food there. And couscous is my weakness. My mother makes a couscous. If you've never eaten couscous, it's like the first time you had sex almost. It just does something to you. And caille on the side is even better, you know. So I recommend either one if you haven't tried that, Dave. If you'll notice, Many of our items are not touched by human hands. It's just a coon has his hands with gloves on, you see. They just, see, you'll notice...
When AJ is at the store, he's a one-man show. No one is a stranger. And you can find him bagging groceries or showing a customer the fine points of a jar of oysters. But AJ isn't at the store very much anymore.
I don't know, my sons, I got 3 sons and two daughters. My sons approached me a few years ago and said, Dad, how would you like to retire on cow buyer? And my eyebrows started wiggling. I said, what do you mean retire this young son? There's no, look, Dad, let us take over your troubles. Let us take your grocery store. Let us run it for you. Let us get them from you. And anyway, they pushed me out gently. I didn't know I was really out, but you know, I started remodeling my place over there, and it's really to be lucky enough to retire at this age in life, to be on the bayou, where just like Louisiana, it's everything I dreamed about. I got my own little pirogue, and I got my own little wife there. She stays still barefooted, you know, not as much pregnant as she used to be, but we got 1 child left, a little girl graduating this year. And I tell you what, it makes you, give you goosebumps to see your last child leaving the little nest, you know.
Well, AJ didn't retire to a rocking chair. He has this red sports car instead. Talking with AJ is a treat. To hear his stories and see him with people, you soon find out that AJ Judice is not only the crazy Frenchman, he's a man who loves life.
In TV's Hogan's Heroes. Well, Werner Klemperer is no longer wearing a uniform, or a monocle for that matter, but he's still performing. In fact, only a few weeks ago, he appeared in Beaumont. A lot of his time is now spent with orchestras throughout the country. He narrates stories as the orchestra plays. And that's what he did here with the Beaumont Symphony. His big number here, Peter and the Wolf. Klemperer is particularly well suited for the job of orchestra narrator. His father was a legendary conductor in Europe, Otto Klemperer. Werner grew up around symphonies, so it was only natural when one called a few years ago to do some narrating. Werner hasn't given up his acting career, however. This summer he'll begin shooting a movie in which he plays a diamond smuggler. As far as another television show, Werner says he wouldn't mind doing one, but it would have to be a good prospect.
And it probably will be, and we wish him well. I hope he comes back to the Golden Triangle. Would you call this a miracle of modern technology?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, we wouldn't. At least I wouldn't. We'd just call it what it is, a can of motor oil. That is, we would if we hadn't gone out to the Sun Oil Terminal in Nederland and found out what we found out about how this quart can of motor oil got to be a quart can of motor oil. Oh, this really brings back memories. I used to work on an assembly line, just like this one. Last month alone, in Sun Oil's Nederland terminal on this small, unglamorous assembly line, Sun Oil turned out 4 million gallons of motor oil. And if you don't believe it, you can ask some of the workers, such as Arthur Smith, the stacker. He ought to know. He stacked a lot of that 4 million, and he's been stacking for 2.5 years.
Yeah, I know exactly how many.
Well, they said they moved out 4 million gallons last month. Did you stack all those over here?
Majority of it I did.
It keeps you in pretty good shape, though.
Right, good. You have to be in good shape to even start.
This is the heart of the operation at Sun Oil. Those pipes carry the additives that turns plain old oil into motor oil before it's piped into cans. And Clyde Brown, who's been here for 40 years, says cans aren't the only thing Sun Oil ships out.
Of course, all of it was in import cans.
Oh, some of it was in those barrels, I guess.
Right, some of it was in 55-gallon drums.
When it comes to the barrel operation, A.C. Lindsay is the man to talk to. In 35 years, he's put the cap on many an oil drum. It doesn't take too long to pump all that oil in there?
About a minute and a half. 2 drums.
Then she puts the cap on, pushes a button, slides them all down, huh?
That's right. There she goes. Okay, Marvin, she fixed to push the button now.
So much for the barrel department. When it comes to the quart can operation, Clyde Brown says the main thing to do is not let the cans hit the floor.
The rim is damaged, and the sealer does not crimp like it should.
Yeah, so that's out around then.
That is correct.
What happens when that happens?
You get a seepage from the can, and the cardboard carton absorbs the seepage and makes it an unacceptable case. It must be recased. The carton as a whole and put into a new case, and this creates a cost of time and material.
Okay. 4 million gallons, was it? 4 million.
Better than 4 million gallons, yes, that our terminal produced this past month.
So it's a lot of quart cans.
That is a lot of quart cans, I'll grant you.
Calls Toledo, Ohio home, but he doesn't see it very often. He married his wife in Port Arthur 44 years ago, and this is his first trip back. He watches America go by, not merely by driving the slow lane, but by waiting for the next freight train. He's been a hobo for 12 years.
I was a cement finisher all my life. And when I was in my 50s, I hurt both my knees in a fall, and I couldn't work anymore. So I was sitting around home. My girls were married and gone, and I couldn't work, so I love trains, so I started riding again.
For his travels, Steam Train Maury has been elected king of the hobos. He defends his breed from those who would call them wandering bums.
They just chose that kind of life, and they all had a trade or craft they could work at. They just didn't want to stay too long in one place.
When he was here before, Maury worked in the refineries and on the Rainbow Bridge. But today, there's not much of Port Arthur he remembers. It's just as well he's on to Fort Worth this afternoon. And tomorrow, the rest of America. Doug Hoffacker, 12 News, and the trail of the Hobo King in Port Arthur.
Hey, looks like a fun life there, Steam Train Maury. That's our report for now. We'll see you tonight at 10. In the meantime, have a nice evening. Good night.
It started 6 years ago with a simple taste test. Pepsi versus Coke, the Pepsi Challenge.
Pepsi's got it.
Thousands have taken a taste test like this, and nationwide, more people prefer the taste of Pepsi over Coca-Cola.
Pepsi's got your taste for life. You're the Pepsi generation. Come and taste it. Pepsi's got it. Pepsi's got your taste. Pepsi's got it for life.
Welcome to the Cap Game with a new twist. The Pepsi Challenge TV Cash Game. I'm Bob Barker with a chance for you to win up to $5,000. To find our winner for this week, Stephanie, please activate our game board. Every week, we're going to knock out all the numbers except one.
Good morning. Today is Thursday, April 8th. I'm Elaine Fitzgerald. Windy and warmer today in the Triangle. The weather forecast calls for temperatures to reach the low 80s. The low tonight in the mid-50s. Winds are southerly at 15 to 20 miles per hour and gusty. Winds will shift northerly tonight and will stay strong and gusty, bringing in cooler temperatures tomorrow. There's a 40% chance of thunderstorms today, 20% chance tonight. Right now at 67 degrees at News Center 4. And here's what's happening in the news. Port Arthur firefighters are still on the scene of a 3-alarm blaze that began around 10:30 last night. It happened at Harry's Meat Market at 1600 Gulfway, a grocery store which has been vacant for about a year. The blaze began in the rear of the building in the attic and burned out of control until about 3 this morning. No one was hurt. Firefighters closed off part of Gulfway Drive for about 5 hours. The building, worth about $75,000, is gutted. Investigators don't know yet how the blaze started. Port Arthur could reap a $2 million windfall in tax revenue from a Texas Supreme Court decision. The High Court yesterday upheld Port Arthur's right to annex offshore natural gas wells. The Superior Oil Company, which did pay $137 million in royalties to the state, had refused to pay any money to the city, even though Port Arthur had annexed territory in the Gulf, which included Superior's offshore rig. Superior Oil may still appeal the ruling in the U.S. Supreme Court. The president of the Texas AFL-CIO spoke in the Triangle last night on behalf of the candidates the union is endorsing in the May elections. Harry Hubbard spoke before an audience at the OCAW Local 4-243 in Beaumont. Although the union is not endorsing a candidate in the Democratic gubernatorial primary, Hubbard said the union will go all out in a campaign to unseat Governor Bill Clements. Hubbard also said he thinks union members who supported Republicans during the last election will swing back to the Democratic Party because of the current recession. The South Park School District in Beaumont has announced a revised magnet school plan. Superintendent Mike Taylor says it combines the magnet school concept with Judge Parker's desegregation order. Sam Baker reports the plan may result in a bond issue for the district.
Taylor's magnet school plan, presented to the school board, uses Price Elementary and Odom Middle Schools in the South End and West End Schools, Regina Howell Elementary, and Marshall and Vincent Middle Schools. Technical and liberal arts campuses would be used at the high school level. Taylor says the plan would offer students more of a choice with comprehensive skill programs in one end of the district and enrichment programs in the other within the desegregation order set by Judge Parker. The plan would also mean an estimated $30 million bond issue. The success of Taylor's proposal, however, depends largely on the acceptance by the community.
That's my first priority, is getting both the members of CAC and the FOC together. Hopefully the latter part of this week, or as soon thereafter as I can get the leadership together and see if I can garner some support for the program, and especially prior to meeting with the Justice Department later on in the month.
Taylor hopes to present his plan to Judge Parker by May 1st. Taylor feels his proposal has no effect currently on the board's earlier decision to appeal. However, he says if it's agreeable to all parties concerned, his proposal just may have an effect on the board's decision. Sam Baker, News Center 4.
A breakthrough in gene cloning in Houston is heralded as a possible first step toward treating a certain kind of mental retardation. Two scientists at the Baylor College of Medicine say they've cloned a gene from the human X chromosome, which they say they can now reproduce endlessly. The doctors claim the discovery can give science a toehold on the X chromosome and may enable investigators to study genes associated with other inherited human defects. That's News Center 4 today. I'm Elaine Fitzgerald.
Around 10:30 p.m. at Harry's Quality Meat Market in Port Arthur. The building has been abandoned for about 1 year. Fire department officials say that the blaze apparently began in the back of the store and quickly spread to the entire structure. It took 7 units to put out the fire at the all-wood structure. This morning, police are on hand directing traffic around that building. Fire department is still investigating the cause of the fire. Scott Lawrence will have more on the fire at noon, 5, and 6. Beaumont police report that a major accident occurred around 7:30 this morning on Highway 105 and Major Drive. Details are sketchy, but it is believed that at least 2 cars were involved in the accident, and an ambulance has been dispatched to that scene. A father and his 2-year-old son died early this morning in what Beaumont police say is a homicide-suicide. Details are sketchy this morning, but police say a 2-year-old child was brought to Baptist Hospital dead on arrival. Police say he was beaten to death. Apparently, the child's mother told police that the father had killed the child. Police went to the family's home at 3200 Cartwright around 12:45 a.m. Upon arrival, they discovered that the father had committed suicide. South Park is resuming talks with the Justice Department, hoping to implement...
Boy and his 3-year-old brother were left with the boyfriend while their mother was out. When she returned to her home in the 3200 block of Cartwright, she found one of her sons beaten to death and the other with injuries. She took the child to Baptist Hospital. When the police arrived at the house to arrest the boyfriend, they found him dead. Police are still investigating, and the injured child is now in the custody of juvenile officials. Port Arthur firefighters were kept busy all night by a fire that started around 10:30 p.m. Harry's Meat Market on Gulfway was destroyed by the blaze. The fire started in the rear of the building and burned out of control until around 3 o'clock this morning. A section of Gulfway had to be closed off for about 5 hours because of the blaze. Total damage was estimated to be around $75,000. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. No one was hurt.
Address. Checkout time was 12:16. I entered the building. I discovered one deceased and one possible DOA at the hospital. Witnesses stated they saw 2 black males. We put the description out over the air running from the store immediately after hearing the shots. It appears that the motive was robbery and that the occupants of the business were shot. Again, pending notification next of kin, there will be no names given.
Detective Little went on to describe the scene as he walked in.
2 bodies, one on top of the other, one with a through-and-through gunshot wound to the head, and the other one with a through-and-through gunshot wound to the chest. Apparently they were executed.
The second employee died about 2 p.m. at Baptist Hospital. The shooting is still under investigation. Sam Baker, News Center 4.
Beaumont police are still investigating a murder-suicide which left a 2-year-old boy dead, his 3-year-old brother severely beaten, and their mother's boyfriend dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Police say Eleanor Lewis left her boyfriend, 26-year-old Carl Keith Johnson, in charge of her 2 sons. Lewis returned to her home at 3220 Cartwright and found her 2-year-old son Derek beaten to death. The 3-year-old was still alive but with massive injuries. Lewis took the child to Baptist Hospital. When police went to Lewis's home to arrest Johnson, they found his body and a gun. Lieutenant Weldon Dunlap says the investigation is being continued.
Yes, we're still contacting people who may know more information on the children having beatings and numerous child abuse problems. We're also conducting autopsies on the 2 people that are deceased, trying to obtain enough information as possible to see how far this investigation does go.
The injured child is now in the custody of juvenile officials.
Testimony in the capital murder trial of Stephen Peter Marin has been recessed until Monday. Earlier this week, Marin pleaded guilty to last December's killing of a San Antonio woman. Marin's lawyers say their client has experienced a religious conversion and is asking for a life sentence. But the prosecution is presenting its case in an effort to send the Rhode Island drifter to death row. Marin is also wanted for questioning in several other murders, rapes, and kidnappings in 9 other states. More than 1,000 striking OCAW workers at Texaco applied for unemployment benefits today. Elaine Fitzgerald says the massive action came after the Texas Employment Commission granted benefits for just 1 striker.
Hundreds of striking OCAW workers showed up at the Texas Employment Commission in Port Arthur as soon as the doors opened. So many union members wanted to file for unemployment benefits that the TEC set up a special application center at the local 4-23 Union Hall. The mad rush came after one striker won his appeal for unemployment benefits, which paved the way for all the others. The union's welfare committee chairman says that striker won his case by telling about the 60-day strike notice Texaco gave the union.
In other words, this is just like a lockout. And when you go out on a lockout, you're out of a job. And we're not, like they say, on strike, we walk out of there. They shoved us out.
Strikers won't automatically win benefits. Each case will be reviewed individually.
If it doesn't get reversed, how soon could people anticipate getting any money?
Well, it'll be some time before these all go through the appeals process. It takes about 30 days to get an appeal hearing from the time that it's asked for.
If the benefits are approved for the 3,400 strikers expected to apply, it could mean that Texaco would end up paying out millions towards those benefits. The company says it will appeal. Meanwhile, the Unemployment Commission will staff the OCAW hall for the next week from 8 to 11 in the morning and 1 to 4 in the afternoon. Most union members could get the maximum $147 per week unless Texaco wins its appeal. Elaine Fitzgerald, News Center 4.
And this morning, Texaco and representatives for Local 4-23 met for another round of talks. But a spokesperson for Texaco says nothing was accomplished. Talks are expected to resume Monday morning.
Port Arthur firefighters were kept busy last night as a major fire destroyed a meat market on Gulfway Drive. David Bush has the story.
Smoke from the fire could be seen across the west side of Port Arthur. The blaze was discovered at about 10:30 in the abandoned Harry's Meat Market building in the 1600 block of Gulfway by a police officer on patrol. It went to 2 alarms before 11, and a 3rd unit was called out for neighborhood protection just before 12. Gulfway Drive was closed to traffic, and electricity in the area was shut off when it appeared the fire might burn through nearby lines. Those weren't the only problems the fire department faced.
We had a considerable amount of wind at the time, which, that kind of helped spread the fire faster than it normally would. And we've also got an old building that was vacant for all practical purposes, and there wasn't anything in that attic to stop the spread. This fire was a very high fire, started around the ceiling and attic area, and there weren't any fire stops in it due to the fact that this is an older building and it wasn't required. But once it gets a head start in that type of building, and the old wood just really burns.
No one was injured, and the blaze was finally brought under control at about 3 o'clock this morning. Damage is estimated at about $75,000. As you can see, there's not very much left of the building. Although the electricity was supposed to have been turned off, the fire marshals found some shorted out wires in the rubble, and they think that might have been the cause of the fire. Meanwhile, they're still investigating. David Bush, News Center 4.
Coming up, it looks like a cool Good Friday.
Dave will have the forecast when we come back.
She's knowledgeable in the civil procedure and the criminal procedure of that court.
She'll serve as Justice of the Peace for Precinct 7 until the term ends January the 1st. Moon resigned last week following his 66th birthday.
Governor Bill Clement says the growing recession and high unemployment throughout America has not hit Texas. Clements, who is in the Golden Triangle campaigning this evening, held a press conference this afternoon, and when the subject of recession in Texas came up, he flatly denied it.
No, it has not, as a matter of fact. I think it's a very good question, and it's one that a lot of people are asking, but our Texas economy continues to be very, very strong. There's no doubt at all that our Texas state economy is the strongest of any state in the nation. So our Texas economy overall is very strong, although I recognize that in some spots we do have some soft areas where there is some unemployment, but we have to go back to compared to what? And
currently, our high today, was 66 degrees, our low 54. Currently, it's cloudy outside with a temperature of 65. Relative humidity is 81%. Barometric pressure is 30.03 and holding steady.
The upcoming May 1st primary. The senator maintains curbing the nation's soaring interest rates is the main objective on the road to economic recovery.
I
I do believe in these things. I believe very strongly that we're going to have to cut this deficit back more than is projected. I think in addition to that, the Federal Reserve has to have a modest increase in the money supply. We've got to get these interest rates down. If we don't, you just cratered home building in this country. People are not going to buy automobiles, and you're going to see unemployment stay high.
Benson adds he has helped pass tax measures aimed at increasing savings in an effort to improve the country's economy. And the senator says if his suggested solutions are not followed, he foresees an extended recession and an increase in business bankruptcies in the near future. Texas Land Commissioner Bob Armstrong says State Attorney General Mark White has committed grave errors in office. At an Austin news conference today, Armstrong blasted White for spending 6 times more money than his predecessor, John Hill. Armstrong says that figure doesn't even include the money spent for outside counsel in the Texas prison reform case. Next up, the Rockets is helping victims of everything from heart attacks to drownings. As David...
He's no stranger to beating the odds. He's already been banned in casinos all over the country for figuring out a way to beat blackjack. Well, now he's applied his Ivy League-educated Phi Beta Kappa brain to video games. He's written a couple little books, Mastering Pac-Man and Score, beating the top 16 video games. If you're so good, prove it.
All right. Eat some dots here. That's called eating a monster. Try to eat as many of those monsters as you can when they turn blue.
What's your high score?
378,000.
With weather. Good evening, I'm Michael Jones. There was still no progress on the local labor front today. Representatives from Texaco and OCAW Local 4-23 met for about a half hour this morning, but nothing came out of the talks. Another meeting is set for Monday. The company met also with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers later today, and after about 2 hours of discussions, both sides agreed to review their notes and meet again at a later date. Tomorrow, Texaco is scheduled to meet with the OCAW Product Control Group. Port Arthur City Councilman James Hoyer is resigning his council posts. Hoyer is running for the job of Justice of the Peace, that is Port Neches City Councilman James Hoyer. And Texas law says any council member who's been in office more than 2 years must quit if they seek another elected position. Hoyer says the law violates the U.S. Constitution, but he has not decided to fight the law in court. He says it would cost taxpayers too much money, not to mention the cost to himself, and it would delay other city business. A 20-year-old California woman testified today that confessed killer Stephen Peter Morin tortured and raped her in San Francisco 6 years ago. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty now that jurors have convicted Morin of the capital murder of a San Antonio woman last December. Tomorrow, defense lawyers will try to prove Morin is a changed man and should not be executed. In addition to Morin, one witness is expected to be called as a San Antonio woman, allegedly kidnapped by Morin, who claims to be responsible for his spiritual conversion. A big day at St. Mary's Hospital today. A ceremony was held to mark the completion of the hospital's new south wing. Hospital officials, representatives from the construction company, and Port Arthur City Councilman Maurice Connolly were on hand for the ceremony, which included the traditional raising of an evergreen to the roof of the new wing. That is a symbol of good luck. The new wing will house 152 beds and a rooftop helicopter pad. Congressman Jack Brooks' new campaign headquarters opened today. They're located at Regent Square on Highway 365, a gift from Pipefitters Local 195. The union is endorsing the Democrat incumbent from the 9th District in his re-election bid. Brooks finds out if he'll be returning to Washington on Saturday, May 1st. You've still got a bit more than 24 hours to mail your income tax returns before the midnight deadline tomorrow evening. Today, Carol Herrera visited the local post office to see how they're getting ready for the last-minute onslaught.
If you're beginning to feel the pressure of getting your tax returns in on time, then you're not alone. Postmaster Bill Williams says the volume of mail has more than doubled this last week. That's just with tax returns. As of this afternoon, more than 100 of them were mailed, and he expects 3 times that by the end of the day. If you haven't mailed yours out yet, then you have until the stroke of midnight Thursday. For you late senders, the postmaster has some advice.
Well, we won't change the postmark date until after midnight tomorrow night. I would suggest that they bring them to the main office here on Lakeshore or North Port Arthur Station on 9th Avenue or Port Acres Station. and place it in the boxes there. Because if they drop it on the street, that box might have already been picked up, and it might not be postmarked until the following day. So I would suggest very strongly that if it's after 5 o'clock, they bring them to one of the 3 locations I previously mentioned.
For faster and better service, the post office says you can help by sending your tax return in the IRS envelope that came with your tax forms. If you're having trouble meeting tomorrow's deadline, then you can file for an automatic extension until June the 15th. But you'll have to do that tomorrow, too. Carol Herrera, News Center 4.
Next on News Center 4 tonight, the president says butt out to the Soviets. Stay with us.
The United States is providing that aid. The president did seem to confirm other reports that the Soviets are helping Argentina.
Well, that has been reported and evidently is established, and I think that it's, I'd like to see them butt out.
When questioned further, the president appeared to back off, saying all he knows is what he's heard and read. Later, spokesman Larry Speake said the president based his answers on press reports, not intelligence briefings. At the State Department, Secretary Haig was also engaged in damage control, trying to offset reports that the United States is giving secret help to Great Britain.
Since the onset of the crisis, the United States has therefore not acceded to requests that would go beyond the scope of customary patterns of cooperation based on existing bilateral agreements.
The administration is clearly concerned that reports of secret United States help to Great Britain might upset Haig's role as an honest broker. Haig said that both countries have assured him and the president again today that they are prepared to go on working with the United States to reach a peaceful solution. Haig leaves again for Buenos Aires in the morning. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, the White House.
There are some tornado watches in effect around Texas right now.
Yeah, there is. Up in central Texas and north central Texas, about 43 counties. You want to name them?
I'll let you do that for me.
Okay. In the Triangle, our weather is fairly good. We had clouds most of the day. The sun did come out in the afternoon, but right now, this is what we're doing. Temperature reading of 72 outside. It's cloudy, and the high today was 79, low was 67. Actually, it was a pretty mild day outside. Relative humidity is 90%, quite high. Barometric pressure 29.83 and steady, and the winds from the southeast at 10 miles per hour. Clouds over most of Texas. You see them right there. See that little thing right in the middle. Around Fort Worth, a little higher than that. Severe thunderstorms and a tornado watch in effect for the next few hours. As you get up into Oklahoma, though, things start clearing out. But right in front of a cold front dropping down from the Pacific Northwest, they're getting all kinds of bad weather, severe thunderstorms around Nebraska and Kansas. And then to the west of that, they have some wind warnings out there. But take a look at Texas. All that stuff is heading our way, too. We have some clouds in the area, but the stuff that you see in central Texas is moving in here. We should get some thunder showers starting tomorrow. Shouldn't be as bad as they're experiencing right now up in north central Texas, though. On the national map, you'll see this cold front that was moving through Texas is now stalled out, become a warm front, and it is attached to a low in the panhandle of Texas. This is the area that that tornado watch is in. Actually, it's northwest of us quite a ways. This cold front stalled out, causing some cloudiness, a little bit of rain down here, but the thunderstorms in front of the front as it comes down from the Pacific Northwest. Rain on the Pacific Northwest has turned to snow as it gets into Idaho and the higher elevations of the Rocky Mountains and some of the mountainous areas of both Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. And then the rest of the nation up in the Northeast. Fairly nice weather today. Going to our radar, we see the rain out in the Northwest. A lot of it, especially around the coast as that new system continues to move in. Then New England, fairly clear, although there were some bad storms up in Wisconsin today. You see those happening right now, also in southern Minnesota. In the Southwest, fairly clear till you get into Texas, and you can see just the edge of that tornado watch. And as we go to the southeast, most of us right there. Just south and southeast of Wichita Falls and in the Denton area. That's where most of those severe thunderstorms are right now. Now let's take a look at the whole nation, and you can see that the scattered showers over most of the area. Now tomorrow, this is what we are looking for. Rain up in the Pacific Northwest, and then the showers continue over the northern part of the nation, but sunny down in the southwest part of the nation, then thunder showers in our area and throughout the south in the Gulf Coast states, but still sunny up in the Ohio Valley and the northeast. The Golden Triangle forecast calls for mostly cloudy and warm, something like we had today, with a chance of thunderstorms, probability of rain 40% tonight, 50% tomorrow, and then decreasing to 30% tomorrow night. Coastal highs, mid-80s, about the same thing inland for the temperatures tomorrow. Same as far as the lows are concerned, about 70 degrees tonight. And then the wind southerly 5 to 10 miles per hour tonight, and that'll increase 10 to 15 miles per hour on Thursday. Early morning cloudiness and fog for the lakes area, otherwise partly cloudy through Friday with a probability of rain of 20% tonight and 40% tomorrow. Temperatures near 80 degrees for a high, low tonight, lower 60s. And then the winds will be from the southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Sunrise at 5:50 in the morning and sunset at 6:43 tomorrow afternoon. Friday, still a slight chance of showers, not quite the chance that we'll have tomorrow. We'll have quite a few tomorrow, but then Saturday and Sunday should be okay.
Sounds good. Keep out the umbrellas for tomorrow, though, huh?
Yes.
All right, stay dry. Well, a judge in Westchester County, New York, has freed a 26-year-old Guatemalan waiter who was found guilty of setting the December 1980 fire at the Stouffer's Inn. 26 people died in that fire. The details from Dara Wells in New York.
Westchester County Judge Lawrence Martin today dismissed the arson and murder conviction against Luis Marin. Marin had been found guilty of setting the Stouffer's Inn fire that killed 26 people on December 4th, 1980. Judge Martin ruled that the evidence for conviction was insufficient and he was obligated to grant the request for dismissal. But the ruling was met with bitter feelings in other quarters.
What we witnessed here this morning, in my judgment, is a gross perversion of the judicial process. To turn a person loose who has been convicted of the murder of 26 innocent people when there are other more adequate remedies available is the greatest abuse of judicial power that I've seen in my 34 years as a prosecutor.
Marin, free for the first time since he was jailed without bail after the fire, still maintained his innocence as he left the court. Dara Wells, NBC News, New York.
A fire in the Jersey City, New Jersey jail this morning killed 7 prisoners. The fire is believed to have started in a mattress. The 7 victims were all locked in the same cell and could not escape the fire. Their bodies were found huddled in a corner of the cell. The 9-story prison was built to hold 430 inmates, but 582 were housed there when the fire broke out. Charges of overcrowding at the jail have recently been under investigation by the New Jersey Superior Court. In Italy today, the accused killers of former Italian Premier Aldo Moro went on trial. Government prosecutors say the trial of the 23 Red Brigade terrorist is the most important legal assault yet on urban terrorism in Italy. The trial was abruptly adjourned when the defendants, who are kept in steel cages in the courtroom, started singing the communist anthem. The proceedings are expected to take a year to complete. Millions of Muslims worldwide staged a general strike today. They were protesting Sunday's attack on one of Islam's holiest shrines, the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. 2 Arabs were killed in that attack. Air and rail traffic was disrupted in several Mideast countries, and banking centers were closed. Unrest in Israel stemming from the attack continued today as troops shot and wounded 2 Arab demonstrators.
And this color camera with 6-power zoom lens records professional quality home movies to cherish forever. Buy this magnificent Magnavox video outfit and save $500 if you act now. Buy now and make no payment until June. The greatest home entertainment values are always at Conn's.
In Congress, Jim Maddox fights for the people and against special interests.
I know that when the time comes to make those hard decisions, I've got to make them. And I frankly at times have been, people have threatened me politically and say, hey, if you don't do what we want you to do, I'm not going to vote for you. I said, so be it.
The real issue is whether the Attorney General will represent the people or the special interests. Jim Maddox will be the people's lawyer. Jim Maddox, the people's lawyer.
There's another sellout show going on in Beaumont right about now. Louise Mandrell is in town for 2 shows at the Palace tonight. This afternoon, David Bush got a look at the preparations for the show and a chance to talk to the middle Mandrell sister.
The band was putting the finishing touches on the stage in preparation for the night's sellout performances, and Louise Mandrell was getting ready to meet the press. Ticket sales for her show have broken the Palace record set by Tanya Tucker a few months ago. It's a long way from where she started.
I love telling this story on stage because if it hadn't been for Uncle Irie and my little sister Arlene, I guess I wouldn't be on the road now, because Uncle Irie asked Arlene how she liked her new church, and she said, well, I like it just fine, but I like it a whole lot better if there was less preaching and more singing, so he put us to work singing in the church.
Her biggest success came after she started work on the series Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters. But now the show is behind her. Doctors told her sister Barbara she would have to give it up because of the strain, and the sisters never considered doing the series without her.
I can't see any 3 of us doing a variety, a musical variety, without the other 2. I think we're spoiled and so are the people. Barbara and I find it, we're both so demanding on our teammates and everything that we do, that we're better off on the same team. We try never to have anything that we can argue over. Matter of fact, we're probably one of the few sisters that are neighbors, because we enjoy being together. We have everything in common, and I owe everything to her.
There was an autograph session after the press conference, and then it was back on stage for a sound check before getting dressed for the show. It's kind of funny seeing all the jaded media people waiting in line to get their autographed pictures. I know I got mine. David Bush, News Center 4.
A fan to the end. Well, that's our news tonight. Thank you for watching, and good night from all of us at News Center 4.
Of matching colors.
The factory closeout of tires continues at all Monica Brother outlets. These are all top-line quality tires and are priced to sell at our very lowest price. G7815s for only $36.95 plus tax. Compare price and quality with any other tire dealer and you'll find Monica Brothers still the leader. The response to this sale has been tremendous. So hurry while our supply lasts to Monica Brothers, Beaumont, Port Arthur, Silsbee, and Houston. We just keep rolling along. Monica Brothers.
The arrival of spring puts thoughts of fun and sun in the minds of all sportsmen. Enjoy this sight and many more in the excitement of Spring Expo 82, the great outdoors. April 17th and 18th at the Beaumont Civic Center. There's so much to see, from sailboats to motorcycles, campers, canoes, RVs, fishing tackle, antique cars, mopeds, motorhomes, and much, much more. Explore the beautiful indoor garden of live tropical birds and become a part of the great outdoor spirit at Spring Expo 82, the great outdoors. You'll be glad you did.
Tomorrow, one of our most serious humorists and one of the funniest thinkers you'll ever see. He'll be here with us. Art Buchwald has just been awarded the Pulitzer Prize, and that may not be funny, but I think you'll like meeting him.
And also the money crisis at public TV stations sure isn't funny. John Houseman will be here to talk about that.
Have yourself a great day.
I don't think there's such a thing as too much homework. Because should someone say, I didn't, you have to be able to say, I think you did, and be able to prove it.
The brightest news-gathering outfit on the air, ABC News, uniquely qualified to bring you the world.
Good morning. Grab yourself a cup of coffee and join us for Good Morning Golden Triangle. We'll tell you about a makeup seminar going on in the Triangle and a special way to prepare for childbirth coming up next.
If you're still booking your own airline reservations over long distance,
I'm sorry, all our reservation clerks are busy.
or shopping for reasonable hotel accommodations,
Buenos días, este es el Hotel de Mexico.
there's a much easier way. One phone call to Sabine Nature's Travel Service can take care of all your travel plans. Their computerized service will give you the most direct and economical flights. Their 41 years of experience will assure you that your trip will be just as you imagined it, and best of all, there's no charge